Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts College Football Podcast, your ticket to all things college football. Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? Join us as we talk college football, from the national championship to college rivalries to bowl games to the Heisman Trophy to which conference is the best. We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between.
Hello and welcome, college football fans. You're tuned in to the GSMC College Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Davis Ellington, as we're getting going here. Just the third college football podcast. We're getting in on the ground floor. We have a big slate of action coming up here in college football week 2. After a very exciting week 1 capped off by the Auburn-Oregon game and the last-second touchdown by Auburn's homegrown quarterback as they upset the Ducks in that game. The Ducks still holding on to a top 25 spot by a hair as Auburn got themselves a huge win in that contest, but more good football to come here in the early goings of the college season. Not too many cupcake games to speak of when you're looking at some of the high-octane matchups around the college football spectrum, and we're going to break some of those down for you here and some players to watch here in just week 2. Of course, the Heisman talk already starting, as you got to have your questions about which athletes are going to produce, which ones are going to regress. And we're going to look out to what could be an interesting game, at least has the makings of being an interesting game, out with the Ohio State Buckeyes, the number 5 team in the country at this point here in the early goings, taking on the Cincinnati Bearcats. And you might say, well, this looks like it's going to be a slaughter. The Bearcats going up against one of the best teams in the country. And with the Ohio State, so many weapons on that offense. J.K. Dobbins, a force in that backfield. They got Justin Fields, their transfer quarterback, running the show for them under center. How can you stop them? Well, it's simple. If you can take the run game away from Ohio State and make Justin Fields beat you with his arm, you might be able to level the playing field a little bit if you are the Cincinnati Bearcats. So look for them to really try to plug the A-gap, try to hold up Fields, keep him in the pocket, keep him under pressure, make him be a pocket quarterback, and you might be able to force some mistakes from the young quarterback for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Of course, Dobbins in that backfield is always a force to be reckoned with. Really good athletic wide receivers as well, but Justin Fields, his first touchdown, a rushing touchdown for the Buckeyes. He broke off a huge run right up the middle, linebacker out of position. That play was run a couple times later on in that game, and you could see the FAU inside linebackers stuffing Fields at the line of scrimmage as I saw it coming. So if you can be in the right spot at the right time, if the Bearcats defense can just stick to the play calling, if they're in coverage space, if they're not giving up the obvious throws, then Fields might be a little more restricted in what he can do as a dual threat quarterback. And if the Bearcats can jump on that, might be able to pressure Ohio State early and often and maybe even steal a win. But they should at least be able to make it a close game if they can take away the legs of Justin Fields. And then another matchup that might not be so high on your radar that'll be interesting to watch is Vanderbilt going on to take on the Purdue Boilermakers. Vandy boasting running back Keyshawn Vaughn, who's had so much hype around him coming into the season. Keyshawn Vaughn talking about how he believes he's the number 1 running back. He should be the number 1 running back taken in this year's upcoming draft, and that he's the guy that everyone should be looking at. Well, he's getting a big shot here to prove it, going up against a stout defense as always. The Boilermakers of Purdue, the Big Ten team, they'll be able to really, test Vanderbilt because they're going to be keyed in on Keyshawn Vaughn. They're going to be watching him all day. He's not going to have anywhere to hide. So that defense is going to be looking to stop the run. Vaughn, 243 yards of offense in that Texas Bowl last season, and now with all that hype, a little bit more notoriety to his name, looking to have a big season before he goes on to what he hopes to be an NFL career. So it could be a fun game to watch, see if he's able to continue to build potential Heisman talk around himself. And then another game with another running back that has had such a successful career and should be a guy that NFL teams will definitely be watching. It's going to be Northern Illinois going against the number 13 team in the country, the Utah Utes, and the Utes boasting running back Zach Moss. He had 7 carries of 10-plus yards in his last game to open up the season, and Moss, time and again, has been the guy for the Utes in that backfield. He's been fantastic ever since he stepped on campus, and with another season to prove how good he is, could be a big game for the young star as he's getting ready again, much like Keyshawn Vaughn, to build up his name, trying to get into Heisman talks, always tough as more of a West Coast team, but also, trying to build his stock for a potential career in the NFL. Another team to look at is going to be the number 17 Wisconsin Badgers in Camp Randall, hosting the Central Michigan offense that has been pretty solid to show in the early going. They had a tough season last year, 1-11, but really it's all about the Badgers here. Their defense, as always, is stout. They lost some big playmakers, but no problem. Next guy up in that organization, as they always seem to have one of the best defenses and one of the best offensive lines in the country, and that offensive line is blocking for one of the Heisman hopefuls in Jonathan Taylor. I love this running back. He's one of the best, if not the best, in the country, following suit in a long line of Wisconsin running backs that have had amazing college careers and have gone on to make some noise in the NFL as well. But Jonathan Taylor, the work ethic of this kid is just amazing. He knows how good he is, but he also knows where he needs to improve. He's such a good runner. He's in between the tackles. He can get out in space. He can beat you to the edge. He can break the tackle of a linebacker but outrun a cornerback. But he knows that at the next level, you need to be a dual threat running back. He's worked all offseason and all training camp on his hands, on catching balls, making sure that he is that pass-catching running back weapon that the Wisconsin Badgers need. And with a little bit of uncertainty at quarterback, that's something that they really need to have, is that safety valve. Of course, their tight end position always solid, but you'd love to be able to throw the ball to Jonathan Taylor out of the backfield, find different, more creative ways to get him the ball. And if they can do that, they should continue to rise from that number 17 ranking. And the reason they have that number 17 ranking is because of their quarterback position. They've recruited so much talent there, but it's just a matter of who is going to step up at the next level. Right now, it's Jack Cohen, the junior. He started game 1, 19 of 26, just a shade over 200 yards, a couple of touchdowns in that win. And really, Wisconsin is one of those teams you don't need your quarterback to be your main guy. With a guy like Jonathan Taylor in your backfield, you just need to be able to be the supporting cast at the quarterback position. But Chase Wolf, Graham Mertz, Danny Vanderboom, these are all guys that aren't, those three are not even starting for Wisconsin, but they're all high 5, 4-star recruit quarterbacks coming out of high school. They're all on that bench. They're all working to get better. The question is, which one of these guys is going to step up, or will it be Jack Cohen that's able to hold this spot and really give the Badgers the quarterback play that they've been looking for? Alex Hornibrook at times had flashes of greatness for the Badgers, and when he did, they looked unbeatable, but time and again in the big game scenarios, he just wasn't able to deliver, and they didn't waste some of those teams, but they did not capitalize on some of the great teams that Wisconsin has had in the last couple of seasons. Now they're looking for the next guy up at the quarterback spot to really be able to be the last piece of the puzzle, bring this team together. They're looking for their first college football playoff berth, and they just might get it if they can get some higher quality quarterback play, some more consistent quarterback play. Their wide receivers, led by Danny Davis, an athletic group. They're not very big, but they're quick. They're tough to tackle in space, and the Wisconsin offense is poised to get them the ball in space. Jonathan Taylor is such a threat in that backfield. He's another guy that just draws so much attention that the wide receivers and the tight ends are able to get some more one-on-one matchups as it goes on in the game. A lot more matchups to talk about here as the podcast goes on. The SEC with a whole host of fantastic games that we're going to get to. They're going to have their own segment today because there's just so much to break down in the SEC in week 2. Some huge matchups you don't normally see this early in the season, but teams are coming out guns blazing and ready to throw down with one another. It's going to be an exciting Saturday of football. Absolutely. You got guys coming out who are obviously pro caliber players. It's so exciting to watch as you're getting ready for Sunday. But college football is so special. You have these student athletes out there who are still, by all definitions, amateur athletes, and you just never really know what's going to happen. It's such a variable, who's going to win and who's going to cause a big upset, who's not going to be able to finish in the fourth quarter. And that's why every Saturday, even though you might not be a fan of the school, you can easily become a fan of the school when watching teams like Wisconsin or Vanderbilt or Utah play. You get sucked in to the action a little bit differently than with the NFL. So it'll be a fun Saturday slate of games, and we'll come back and touch on the wildness that we could see in the SEC in week 2 of college football. Stay right here. You're listening to the GSMC College Football Podcast.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back, football fanatics, as we're going to break down right now the SEC and specifically touch on the SEC West, as they really have an opportunity here in week 2 to break away from the notion that they're really not as deep as the other half of their conference, and they have some huge games coming up here. Especially, we're going to start right off the bat with number 12 Texas A&M going up against number 1 Clemson. The Tigers playing host in this one against the Aggies, and that's a huge advantage right there for this Clemson team, already the number 1 team in the country, and in a game that it could seem like they might falter and lose. By playing at home, you take away the Texas A&M 12th man. That's one of the loudest stadiums in the country, regardless of what sport you're playing. And that A&M team really thrives on that noise, on that passion from their fan base. Clemson's student section and their fan base, no slouches themselves, but the 12th man at Texas A&M is just a little bit different. So Clemson with that home field advantage, boasting a 17.5-point favorite right now in this matchup. And if you're A&M, you got some hope. You played Clemson so well last season. Clemson just edging out the victory 28-26. But you continue to hold your quarterback. That's Kellen Mond, the quarterback for the A&M Aggies. And he was so good against the Clemson team that went on to be national champions last year. He threw for 430 yards and 3 touchdowns in that 28-26 loss. So look for him against that Clemson secondary to be a really big matchup. Dabo Swinney's going to be gearing his team up against that pass. They're going to try to keep Mon down. They know how good he is. And if he can get hot, if he can get that offense rolling, and they get a couple stops on defense, they might be in for a bit of an upset there. Clemson, on the other hand, when you look at that team, it's just one guy catches your eye, and it's the long blonde hair of Trevor Lawrence. How do you stop that man? He comes in poised as can be, wins his team a national championship as a true freshman, absolutely dismantles Alabama. Now he comes in a full season now as the starting quarterback is what's on his plate. And he's looking for another statement victory here against the Aggies. It's early on in the season. And if you're the Texas A&M, you're really hoping that maybe not everyone's in total sync over there. You might be able to capitalize on some mistakes, but with the way Dabo Swinney runs that team and the way that Trevor Lawrence carries himself, it's going to be so difficult to best that Clemson offense. But if you're A&M, you got to think you got the defensive talent to really have a shot at this game. So that's going to be a huge matchup in this Saturday slate of games. It'll be a fun one to watch as well. Interesting to see how it shakes out. Lawrence under center. He looked good in game one for Clemson, not as perfect as he usually does, but he's held to such a high standard after what we saw from him last season. Of course, he's not going to be able to live up exactly to it, most likely, unless he goes perfect 26 for 26 passing. But he's a guy that's going to be, of course, number one on A&M's watch list. So we'll see how Dabo tailors his offense to face off against the Aggies in a huge game where the SEC West is really trying to prove their depth beyond just Alabama in some of these marquee games. And another huge marquee game that we'll talk about is LSU, which is number 6 in the country, up against number 9 Texas. The last piece that A&M really might be able to look for is their head coach Jimbo Fisher. If he can dial up something that can really catch Dabo Swinney off guard, it's going to be such an interesting chess match between those two coaches. Very excited to watch that play out with all the talent on the field, all the intelligence on the sideline. Could be one of the best games we see all season. But LSU in Texas is going to be another phenomenal game here. They have the last billing, the Saturday night game, and rightfully so, in Texas. The burnt orange will be out loud and proud. Horns will be up for Sam Ehlinger and the Texas Longhorns offense, as Ehlinger has been fantastic, but he's going to be opposed by another exceptional quarterback talent, Joe Burrow, the LSU quarterback, a transfer from Ohio State University, as he looked solid in game one of his LSU career, as he dismantled Georgia Southern 55-3. Burrows threw for 278 yards and 5 touchdowns in that game to a tune of a 95.6 QBR rating. So really impressive game from the LSU quarterback. They didn't really know exactly what they were going to get from him. They got an all-star performance. Looking for more of the same. Bit bigger of a test now against Texas, and Texas has been a program really trying to revitalize itself. They had some real down years there for a while. After Colt McCoy and that national championship loss, they really just haven't been the powerhouse that they were for so long. Looking to get back there, and Sam Ehlinger, the quarterback, is looking to be that guy to get them back to that lofty level of play where they're competing for national championships year in and year out, and they're just like Alabama, a consensus favorite to win the whole thing. They need a statement win this season against this LSU Tigers team, number 6 versus number 9. Whoever loses is going to get knocked down. The one nice thing is you're not going to get knocked down too far, especially if you're Texas. If you lose to LSU, number 9, fall into a higher seed, you're not going to fall that far back in the race for the college football playoff. And like we said, it's just so early in this season. It's going to be interesting to see how everything shakes out. But in college football, one loss can spell the doom for your entire season. It's crazy how that works, but just like we were talking about before the commercial break, college football is so much fun to root for. It's not like the NFL where if your team's not playing and then you really don't have any fantasy football stake in the game, you're a little tuned out to it. In college football, however, because of how much rides on each game in each week and the circumstances that will arise due to the outcome of whatever game you're watching, it just draws you in. The purity of the game really comes out in college football, and these are going to be a couple of games, marquee coaches, marquee players in big-time games. The lights will be bright in Austin, Texas, as well as on Clemson's field, as they're going to get set for a couple huge games of the college football season. Those two really going to shake out as we see where Alabama, who's sitting in that 2 spot, they're looking for Texas A&M to have a huge upset win. Alabama, of course, losing to Clemson in that national championship, would love to be able to get in the driver's seat, and this is a big opportunity for them if A&M is able to win. And A&M themselves, after the Johnny Manziel era, have just kind of treaded water in the national football rankings, but really with a win here on Saturday could make a huge jump into that top 10 area, maybe even in the top 5 if some things break their way. It'll be very interesting to see the shakeout from week 2, and like we said, we don't normally see such great action around college football so early in the season. Normally a lot of these top teams really want to kind of cupcake their schedule early, build a nice 3-0, 4-0 base before going into league play. But this season, they're going right after one another. I love it. I love the chess matches that we're going to see on the sidelines here. I love the winner-take-all mentality by these teams, scheduling these big-time games for so early in the season. Their athletes are fresh. It's going to be a high-octane, high-speed games, definitely to watch. Be sure to tune in for both. You're going to have a great time here on Saturday of football, and college football has really taken off this season. So many interesting storylines, and the one storyline we're going to touch on in our next segment is all about the transfer quarterback scenarios going on right now in college football. We're going to take a short break, but we'll come right back with all that info and more when we return on the GSMC College Football Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back, listeners, to the GSMC College Football Podcast. Davis Ellington here with you as we're going to take a look into one of the biggest storylines of this college football season. And after week 1, we at least have a little bit to talk about in this area, and that's the transfer quarterback pool that happened going into this season. A lot of big names moving around and now getting chances to really show what they've got on the field for their new teams, and some big results and some huge payoffs for these clubs that were able to bring in some fresh blood at quarterback, stealing them away from other powerhouse schools and plugging them into their offenses. We just talked about him. We'll bring him back up. Number 6, LSU's quarterback Joe Burrow. A fantastic game, 278 yards, 5 touchdowns. The Ohio State transfer now leading this LSU Tigers offense, and LSU has been starved for good quarterback play over the last few seasons. At least they really just haven't had that guy behind center that has been the dude time and again to come up with big plays. They think Joe Burrows could be that guy. I would have to agree after his first week. Of course, it's Georgia Southern. He hasn't been taking on anyone like Oklahoma just yet, but a huge test for him up against Texas. It'll be fun to see if that transfer quarterback in Joe Burrows has the system down well enough to go up and go into Austin, Texas, and get his team a huge win as they're looking to keep this momentum going. Then we take a look at Ohio State. Again, another quarterback we've already touched on, Justin Fields, 243 yards of passing, 5 touchdowns, 4 passing, 1 rushing, as he broke off a huge 60-yard run for his first score as a Buckeye. He's a transfer from Georgia behind Jake Fromm. He was an all-world recruit. This guy was regarded as one of the best quarterback recruits to come out of high school in quite a while, and just got stuck behind such a good quarterback in Jake Fromm. Fromm did nothing wrong to lose the job, so Georgia rolling with their guy, and he's been solid for them. Of course, Georgia's been right in the mix for the national championship ever since they've been putting Fromm under center. But Justin Fields getting a chance to shine for the Ohio State Buckeyes. They're sitting at number 5 right now. They're looking to stay moving up the board as the season goes on, and it's going to be the dual threat of Fields. We saw Dwayne Haskins last season as a passing and running quarterback have so much success. We've seen that with so many guys in that Buckeyes offense. J.T. Barrett had that. You can go all the way back to Terrell Pryor, was so good as a passing and running quarterback. We'll see if Justin Fields is the next in that long line of dual threat quarterbacks for Ohio State as this season goes on. Our next look has to go out to number 4, Oklahoma, which was one of the biggest stories of last year's college football season. The positional battle between Jalen Hurts and Tua Tagovailoa. Tagovailoa obviously won that one and is still the starting quarterback for Alabama Crimson Tide, but Jalen Hurts has changed jerseys now. He's the quarterback for Oklahoma, and he's following 2 Heisman Trophy winners in Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray. So Jalen Hurts walks into a situation with a lot of high expectations that are going to be placed on his shoulders. And in week 1, he showed that he was up to the task. 332 yards of passing, 3 touchdowns to a tune of a QBR of 96.7, an all-around phenomenal game. And we know Jalen Hurts has this ability to do this. He just struggled at times in those big college football championship games. That's when Tagovailoa came in the second half to get that big win. The bomb against Georgia to seal that one really got him that job. But Jalen Hurts, a fantastic talent, one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and he's looking to prove that for Oklahoma. He's trying to become the 3rd consecutive Heisman Trophy winner at the quarterback position for the Oklahoma Sooners. A feat that really you could never imagine of seeing, but Oklahoma's just been cranking out such amazing talent. Credit to that coaching staff, the systems they've been putting in place, and they're looking to just capitalize on the fact that Jalen Hurts became a transfer because of that very unique situation under Nick Saban in that Alabama offense. So now Jalen Hurts getting a real chance to shine right before his potential change into a pro uniform. He's trying to get everything out of his system here in college, showing the NFL what he can do is if he wants to make that next step. And quarterbacking for Oklahoma and throwing for 300-plus yards is a step in the right direction for sure. The last quarterback to really take a look at and that comes out of the transfer portal is Washington Huskies quarterback Jacob Eason, another Georgia quarterback transfer once again, just kind of got stuck in that system like all these other guys and found his way out. He goes into a Washington Huskies team that had Jake Browning at that quarterback spot for a few years there, and Browning was a tough guy. He was kind of like a Ryan Tannehill quarterback for the Huskies. He was very, very good, just could not push them over the edge into greatness. That team had some stellar defenses. Myles Gaskin at running back just got drafted in the 7th round. He was a great talent as well. And they had John Ross, all that speed, new combine record. But Browning really just couldn't put it all together at the quarterback spot. The pressure from Alabama's defense, that is, in the playoff game that he played in, and attempting to win a college football championship was just too much for him, and he kind of got ousted in that game. And with Washington now moving on from Browning, looking for Jacob Eason to be able to take that team to the next level. And Eason, by all accounts, looks to fit the bill. He definitely passes the eye test, 349 yards of passing, 4 touchdowns on 36 attempts in his opening game for the Huskies. An impressive line for sure for the new gunslinger in Washington Huskies, purple and gold. So the Huskies looking to return to prominence, unranked as of now in college football, but looking to change that tune with a really successful season. Jacob Eason looking like a guy that could really give them a lot of high-quality performances at the quarterback spot here in this season. And all these guys here, Burrows, Fields, Hurts, and Eason, as transfer quarterbacks, this is something we haven't seen so much as all of these guys in one season are transfers, and all of them are so good. They're such high-level talents. There's just an embarrassment of riches right now at these top schools in college football where guys like Justin Fields, the highest recruit in his class, is leaving the school he was recruited by just because of the logjam at quarterback. It's an interesting predicament, and we'll see if this affects recruiting at all as it goes on, and guys getting stuck behind one another in these programs and that backlog of talent, because it's keeping guys like Burrows from being on the field as freshmen or as sophomores and really having to wait to that junior and senior season to have a chance to break through and show what they can do. This reminds me, at least, of Bo Jackson's decision to go to Auburn over Alabama. He was told at Alabama he was going to have to sit for at least a year or two behind the running backs ahead of him, and Auburn told him that it would give him every chance to start. He goes there, and of course, the rest is history. So maybe these college recruits, these high college recruits, might be looking a little bit more carefully at who's going to be sitting in front of them as they go into these programs and what exactly their value is at other schools. So we might see a dispersal of these high quarterback recruits as the seasons go on here in college football. Could be something to take note of with just so many transfers and other schools that are starved for quarterback play. Meanwhile, there's teams like Georgia that at one point have the 3 highest valued recruits in the country for one position. So an interesting concept maybe to just put a pin in until later, but these transfer quarterbacks have taken the headlines here in college football, and it'll be so much fun to watch as they go on. 3 of them, of course, ranked in the top 10. Oklahoma at number 4 with Hurts, Ohio State sitting at number 5 with Fields, and number 6 LSU with Joe Burrows. Washington Huskies and Jacob Eason trying to make some noise for the club as the season gets going here, as they'll have a lot of matchups in the Pac-12 conference that they should be able to get a pretty solid winning percentage if that defense can hold up. So a lot to watch, a lot of transfer quarterback news, I'm sure, and we're going to have much more of it as the season goes on, as all of these teams will be on primetime television. They'll be in the spotlight for sure. All these guys are not just vying for a college football playoff berth, but for a chance to play at the next level, and it'll be something definitely to monitor as the season goes on. College football on Saturday set with a fantastic slate of games. It'll be a lot of fun to watch. My voice will probably be hoarse come Sunday after screaming at the TV, but nothing you'd rather do on the weekends. And with that, I'll leave you to your college football this weekend. Thank you so much for listening. Hope to see you back here on the GSMC College Football Podcast.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts College Football Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows from the GSMC Podcast Network, from football to basketball, baseball to MMA, and even soccer. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts College Football Podcast.